Introduction: the silent ache you can't name. There's a kind of pain most people don't talk about. It's not sharp. It doesn't scream. But it lingers, quietly stealing your energy day by day. It's the feeling of waking up and wondering what's the point. You go through the motions, check the boxes, answer the emails, show up where you're supposed to, but deep inside something feels hollow. You tell yourself it's just stress, just fatigue, just life. But if you're honest, it's something more. It's the ache of not knowing why you're doing any of it. You're not alone. This invisible weight follows millions, and yet few can name it. The pain of living without direction. The exhaustion of being busy without meaning. The quiet grief of feeling disconnected from your own life. And it doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in through compromises, ignored passions, silenced dreams. Until one day even success feels empty. And the scariest part? Everyone thinks you're fine, because you look functional. But inside you're not thriving. You're coping, drifting, waiting. And you don't need more noise, more goals, more pressure. What you need is clarity. Real clarity. A return to what matters. Because purpose isn't just about ambition, it's about alignment. When you forget who you are and why you're here, even the best days can feel like survival. But once you remember, everything changes. This video is not just content, it's your invitation to begin again. Block 1. The invisible nature of living without purpose. There's a pain that doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't break your bones, but it bends your spirit quietly and consistently. It shows up as fatigue you can't explain, as scrolling without thinking, as laughter that feels hollow. You're not in crisis, but something feels missing. That's the deceptive nature of purposelessness. It hides in the background noise of your everyday life. It's waking up already tired, doing everything right but feeling everything wrong. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it slowly eats at your desire to live with meaning. And the scariest part? You might not even notice it, until it's already robbed you of years. People imagine a life without purpose as chaos, but that's not how it usually looks. In reality, it can look very put together. A clean calendar, a decent paycheck, a full to-do list. But inside there's no spark, just repetition. You're doing what's expected, but you're not aligned with anything that excites you. You become efficient, not alive. Every goal you hit feels hollow because it wasn't yours to begin with. That's the trap. You function well enough to convince everyone, including yourself, that nothing is wrong. But deep down there's a quiet ache. An unanswered question. What's the point of all this? That question might come to you late at night, or in the middle of something that should make you happy. You might brush it off at first, suppress it, but it always comes back. And every time it does, it grows heavier. This ache isn't about failure, it's about disconnection. From yourself, from your values, from the life you were meant to live but haven't given yourself permission to build. That disconnection begins to manifest subtly. You start avoiding silence. You need noise, distractions, even drama, anything to escape the void. You might throw yourself into work or other people's problems just to avoid facing your own. But the truth is, you can't outrun what's inside you. At some point, life will slow you down. And when it does, the absence of purpose will be impossible to ignore. That's when the real awakening begins, if you choose to face it. Purpose doesn't always leave in a dramatic exit. It simply fades when you stop listening. And it's not that it disappears. It just gets buried under expectations, fears, and comfort zones. But make no mistake, you were not born to live on autopilot. You were born to build, to create, to impact. The longer you ignore the call, the harder it is to hear. But once you do, once you truly listen, your direction returns. And that's where real. Block 2. Routine without direction. The cycle on autopilot. Every morning you wake up and without thinking you step into the same pattern. Shower, coffee, obligations, distractions, sleep. On the surface it looks like life is moving. But beneath it all there's no sense of why. You're no longer choosing your days, they're just happening to you. This is what routine without direction feels like. Consistent, yet unfulfilling. You're not failing, but you're not growing either. You check off your tasks, yet nothing inside you feels accomplished. You're living out habits, not dreams. The most dangerous thing about autopilot living is that it rewards the illusion of progress. Society celebrates busyness. The more packed your schedule is, the more successful you appear. But what if every meeting, every errand, every project is just a distraction from the real work? figuring out who you are and what you want. Without purpose, your calendar fills up with noise. And slowly you start mistaking movement for meaning. Your identity becomes what you do, not who you are. Over time, this kind of routine doesn't just steal your energy, it steals your clarity. You stop questioning. You stop imagining. You stop dreaming. Because it's safer to stay in motion than to pause and reflect. But true purpose always begins in stillness. It begins when you dare to ask, is this the life I was meant to live? Without asking that question, you end up running fast in the wrong direction. Your ladder is tall, but it's leaning against the wrong wall. Even small decisions lose their power when disconnected from purpose. You say yes out of obligation, no out of fear, and tolerate what doesn't serve you because that's just how things are. This erosion of intentionality leads to emotional numbness. You don't feel deeply anymore. Joy fades. Curiosity dims. Life becomes a series of obligations, not opportunities. And every day that passes without direction adds to the quiet grief of lost potential. But there's good news. Even if you've been living on autopilot for years, one moment of awareness can spark a complete turnaround. You don't need to destroy your life. You need to interrupt your patterns. You need to ask better questions. You need to wake up, not just from sleep but from the slumber of passivity. Because direction doesn't require speed, it requires alignment. And when you start living from alignment, your routine becomes powerful again. Block 3. When silence confronts you. Silence has a strange power. It reveals what noise tries to hide. In the quiet moments, when the notifications stop and the day winds down, something unexpected happens. You meet yourself. Not the version others see, not the persona you've built, but the real you, the one behind the achievements, roles, and routines. And that's where discomfort begins. Because if you've been avoiding purpose, silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels threatening. Like a mirror you can't look away from. You may distract yourself all day long, scrolling, multitasking, helping others. But when it's just you and your thoughts, the truth rises. Why am I doing all this? Who am I doing it for? These aren't surface-level questions. They come from the depths. And they don't go away until you answer. But instead of sitting with them, most people numb them. With noise. With food. With work. With entertainment. Anything to avoid the terrifying possibility, I don't know why I'm here. That kind of realization isn't a breakdown, it's an invitation. An opportunity to strip away the layers of conditioning and reconnect with your core. But it requires courage. Because when the silence speaks, it demands honesty. It asks what dreams you've buried, what truths you've denied, what passions you've postponed. And in doing so, it awakens the part of you that's been asleep. Not dead, just forgotten. The part that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. Facing this silence isn't about becoming someone new, it's about returning to someone real. It's about peeling back the noise of performance and rediscovering the values that matter. The moments that moved you. The work that fulfills you. The people who see you. And the future that still calls you. All of it is waiting on the other side of discomfort. That's why the silence feels hard, because it holds the keys to your truth. The most meaningful changes often begin in the most uncomfortable silences. So instead of fearing them, lean in. Listen. Get curious. Your life's direction won't come from more doing, it will come from deeper being. And when you learn to embrace the silence, you stop running. You stop pretending. And finally, you begin to heal, begin to align, begin to live. Not for applause. Not for survival. But for purpose. Block 4. The disguise of a functional life. On the outside, everything looks fine. You have a job. You meet your deadlines. You laugh with friends. Maybe you even post inspiring quotes. But inside, something's missing, and you feel it. That's the paradox of modern life. It's possible to seem successful and yet be silently suffering. A well-managed calendar can hide a misaligned soul. You've mastered performance, but lost authenticity. You look alive but don't feel it. And that gap between how you appear and how you actually feel, it grows heavier over time. Society rewards the visible, status, titles, milestones. So we learn to play the part. We smile. We show up. We produce. But we don't pause. We don't ask, is this the life I truly want? Because deep inside we're afraid of the answer. We've built lives that impress others but depress ourselves. We check boxes but don't feel fulfillment. It's like painting over cracks in a wall, eventually they show. And when they do, the question becomes impossible to ignore. Is this what I was made for? This is the trap of functional living. You become too busy to feel. You convince yourself that surviving is the same as thriving. You lose sensitivity to your inner compass. You become efficient at living someone else's dream. And the scariest part? No one sees it because you're good at hiding it. You're not broken. You're just disconnected from yourself, from your truth, from your fire. That disconnection, when ignored, becomes the root of burnout, anxiety, and silent resignation. But appearances don't have to be the end of your story. They can be the beginning of your awakening. When you finally admit, this isn't enough, you reclaim your power. You stop living to impress and start living to express. You don't need to throw everything away. You just need to strip away what's not real, what's not you. Because only when you become honest about your emptiness can you start to fill it with something meaningful, something yours. And here's the beauty. Your external life doesn't have to crumble for your internal world to come alive. You can keep your job, your routines, even your goals. But now they serve you, not the other way around. The moment you stop performing and start aligning, everything changes. You no longer feel like a stranger in your own life. You begin to move with integrity, clarity, and calm. And finally, what the world sees matches who you really are. Block 5. The micro-abandonments we make each day. Losing yourself doesn't happen all at once. It happens in silence, in small moments, in choices you barely notice. You say no to something that lights you up because it's inconvenient. You silence your ideas because they don't fit the mold. You push away your dreams because now's not the time. And so, piece by piece, you begin to abandon yourself. Not out of weakness, but out of routine, out of fear, out of trying to be what the world asked instead of what your soul needed. These micro-abandonments seem harmless. Skipping the journal, ignoring the urge to create, saying yes when you meant no. But they add up. Each moment you silence your inner voice, it grows quieter. And one day you wake up and realize, you don't remember what excites you anymore. You've become a collage of expectations. And the cost? Your identity, watered down, blurred, forgotten. Not because you failed, but because you stopped choosing yourself. The tragedy is not in one big sacrifice. It's in the slow erosion of who you are. That idea you shelved 5 years ago? It still calls you. That passion you told yourself was just a hobby? Is still waiting. Every unspoken truth, every unexplored curiosity, it still lives inside you. But buried under layers of someday, maybe later, and not realistic. And the longer you delay, the heavier the guilt becomes. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet ache that whispers, I could have been more. Yet even now, those lost parts of you are not gone, they're just waiting for permission. Permission to re-emerge, to speak again, to create, to pursue, to feel alive. And it only takes one act of courage to begin again. One decision to listen to that quiet voice inside. You don't need to blow up your life. You just need to start saying yes, to what matters, to what stirs your heart, to what makes you feel like you. One step toward your truth, and everything begins to shift. And here's what's beautiful. Every micro-abandonment can be met with a micro-restoration. One journal entry. One honest conversation. One small no to what drains you. One bold yes to what heals you. That's how you reclaim your identity, not overnight but moment by moment. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, the world starts to feel different. Clear, brighter, aligned. And that quiet ache? It turns into fuel, direction, purpose. Block 6. Purpose doesn't have to be grand, but it must be real. There's a myth that keeps too many people stuck. The belief that purpose has to be big, loud, or world-changing. As if you must start a movement or build an empire for your life to matter. But that's not what purpose is. Purpose isn't about impressing others, it's about connecting with yourself. It's about doing what makes your soul feel aligned even if no one notices. True purpose doesn't demand attention. It simply demands truth. And when you find it, even the smallest moments feel meaningful. Your purpose might not trend online, but it will echo inside you. It might be raising a family with intention, writing words that touch one life, starting a garden that reminds you of peace, helping one person believe again. Purpose isn't size, it's sincerity. It's the quiet clarity that says, this is who I am. This is what I care about. You don't need permission to live it. You don't need a stage. You just need the courage to honor what matters to you, even when it's not impressive to anyone else. When your actions align with that internal compass, everything shifts. Tasks become fulfilling. Challenges become meaningful. Even pain transforms. It becomes part of the path, not a barrier. Because when you know why you're showing up, you can endure almost anything. And that resilience doesn't come from willpower. It comes from knowing your life has direction. That you're building something, becoming someone, serving a reason that transcends the temporary discomfort. The beauty of real purpose is that it grows with you. It doesn't lock you in, it liberates you. It evolves as you evolve. It doesn't have to be the same for the rest of your life. But it must be real for this chapter. And the more you live with authenticity, the more your purpose reveals itself, not in lightning bolts but in patterns, in repetition, in peace. And suddenly your days feel different, aligned, intentional. So stop searching for something huge. Start listening for something true. Your purpose isn't in the noise of the world. It's in the quiet yes that comes when you do what lights you up. What gives you energy instead of stealing it. What feels like home in your soul. And when you live from that place, everything around you starts to rearrange. Not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. And clarity? That's where freedom begins. Block 7. Reconnect to truly live. The pain of drifting through life without purpose isn't loud, it's subtle. But it's everywhere. You feel it in the morning when you struggle to get out of bed. In the conversations that feel empty. In the moments when success doesn't satisfy. You can't quite explain it, but you know something is off. That's your soul calling you home. And it doesn't need a revolution to return, just reconnection. A decision to stop running, numbing, and avoiding, and start listening. Reconnection begins when you stop asking what others expect and start asking what you need. Not for applause, not for approval, but for peace. What brings you peace? What gives your day meaning, even if it's invisible to the world? These aren't selfish questions, they're sacred ones. Because when you live in alignment with your truth, you give the world your best. You stop performing and start living. Fully. Presently. Deeply. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. You just need to pause long enough to remember what matters. Silence isn't the enemy, it's the doorway back to yourself. Make space to reflect. Walk without your phone. Write what's on your heart. Cry if you must. But reconnect. Your purpose is not somewhere out there. It's inside. It's been with you the whole time, quiet, patient, waiting. And the moment you listen, you begin to live with fire again. And when you do, everything changes. Not because the world gets easier, but because your path gets clearer. You make decisions with more confidence. You say no to what distracts and yes to what builds. You stop chasing and start creating. And that sense of aliveness that's been missing? It returns not in a flood but in waves. In small confirmations. In deep breaths. In meaningful work. In honest relationships. This is how life becomes yours again. So let this be your turning point, not a breakdown but a breakthrough. Let the discomfort be your teacher, not your jailer. Let clarity replace chaos. You don't have to live another day on autopilot. You don't have to keep surviving a life that was never designed for your soul. It's time to remember who you are. To return to what you love. To rebuild with intention. This isn't the end. It's the reawakening. This is where you begin again. Conclusion, your next step to break the cycle. If any part of this message spoke to you, if you felt that silent ache, the numbness in your days, the tension of running without knowing where, you're not broken. You're just disconnected. And that can change. You don't need to keep living this way. You don't need to keep guessing or numbing or pretending. You need a system that brings you back to yourself. That helps you rebuild clarity, inner strength, and lasting direction, step by step. That's why we created the Emotional Mastery Manual. It's not a generic motivational guide. It's a practical, powerful blueprint to help you regain control of your inner world. Inside, you'll find exercises, reflection prompts, mindset rituals, and daily strategies designed to rewire your focus, dissolve emotional chaos, and activate your true power. It's more than information, it's transformation. And it's completely free. So don't just close this video and scroll away. Take the first real step. Download the manual. Read it. Use it. Let it become your foundation. Because once you master your emotions, you master your direction. And once you master your direction, you unlock your freedom, in mindset, in peace, and in prosperity.